So we just continue now from where you've been with Venerable Dunda, remembering our motivation. I'm just looking now at the teaching in your course notes. I really hope you read it. It's very good. It's a really classical presentation from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, from our lamas, and it's chapter 17, listening, thinking, and meditating. So, this is the classic way, the classic use of meditation among Tibetan Buddhists, and the way it's taught by our Gelugpa lamas, that makes it really kind of clear the purpose of it, So, of course, as I've always been saying, and as we know in the West, there's all kinds of ideas about what meditation is, especially its purpose. But if we take the really classic Buddhist approach, we know if we're on the Mahayana path, then we know that we're trying to become a Buddha. It doesn't matter how many lifetimes. And we know there are certain methods we need to employ in order to achieve that goal. It's very clear, isn't it? And so then the classic way of utilizing meditation, and as we've been discussing, there are essentially two modes of meditation, thousands of techniques. There's no doubt about that. In general, the first mode, as we all know, it's called calm abiding, which is necessarily a non-discursive technique. You're actively learning to not buy into the thoughts. You're actively learning to not get involved in the thoughts, not to use the thoughts. You're training your mind to pay attention. You're training the mind eventually to get such concentration that you've literally effortlessly gone beyond all the uncontrolled, berserk, sensory and conceptual levels of mind, which is the levels we function at day to day. And of course, the advantages of that are unbelievable. Lama Yeshe talks about this to try and get us excited, in Mahamudra. We can't even conceive of the brilliance of the human mind when it's got some level of concentration. It's like he says, it's almost like impossible. It's unimaginable, certainly if we compare with what we think in modern world. So that's encouraging to know. So then we know the purpose, the function of that concentrated mind is to get insight. I know in different languages there are different words. This is a Vipassana word, Vipassana in Sanskrit, to get insight. In English, it's a really clear word. It's inner seeing. It means understanding something, experiencing the truth of something. We get that every day, We think of it. I think, I thought I was thinking through my problem and I got a bit of insight into it, which means we begin to taste the meaning, not just intellectual. We really get that. So insight, of course, eventually into everything, eventually into what precisely? Of course, if we look at the six perfections of the Bodhisattva, where we are presented with learning, calm abiding, and special insight, they come right at the end of the path, Although technically both calm abiding and special insight are techniques coming from the middle scope. Even meditation, insight into emptiness is a middle scope teaching. Emptiness is a middle scope teaching, shared by the Hinayana practitioners, but is taught in the context of the Mahayana after we've accomplished bodhicitta, So the only reason we need concentration is so that we can use this laser-like focus to penetrate deeply into the meaning of something in order to get an experience of it, to have as they call it, a realization, But of what? Not just of emptiness, but of all the points of Buddha's path. So if you're learning this is where the listening, thinking, and meditating comes in. These are the three parts of us, using our mind at three levels in order. So obviously the first one is, as Geshe, as Geshe Dhamma was my philosophy teacher. I studied with him when I first studied Buddhist philosophy. He's passed away now. He was the abbot for many years at our monastery in France. So he says, so the first one is called listening, You got to first listen. This is the whole point. You listen first. He said, listen doesn't simply mean letting a sound enter your ears. It involves a certain level of understanding. Suppose, for example, we hear a teaching stating that the aggregates, our body and mind, are impermanent. That is, they change moment by moment. And that's one of Buddha's teachings. Impermanence is one of Buddha's first philosophical teachings. So clearly we have to realize the truth of it. And this is the methodology. This is the classic method. And as I continue like to point out, Buddha didn't invent this principle. This is how we learn everything. You first listen to mathematics. You don't just let the sound come in your ears. You hear it. And as he says here, there's a certain level of understanding, So you listen, and as you're listening to it, you're thinking, yes, it's true. The aggregates are impermanent. As you're listening to your teacher tell you that 1 + 1 is 2, maybe it's brand new information. You don't know it yet. So you write it down and you listen to it. And then the next step is to think about it, Obviously you would. So the next one is the thinking is the process of analyzing. Here, we check to discover whether they in fact are impermanent or not. You check, whether 1 + 1 is 2 is correct or not. I mean, maybe you don't have the basis yet for understanding it. So this is called the wisdom you get the wisdom of listening. Then you have the wisdom of thinking. And this is what happens as we hear teachings, isn't it? We're listening to the teachings. And I promise you, as I'm speaking them, I'm exactly doing this. We listen with attention. And then as we're listening, we then think about it. Now, that's called the wisdom of thinking. Don't underestimate that. That's a crucial step in our process. And this is exactly how we have learned anything we have learned in our modern culture. So this is not surprising, But because it's called Buddhism, we kind of make it all different and weird. But it's exactly the same method you've learned anything. You listen to the cook tell you the recipe, you think it through, and then you do make the cake. That's it's obvious, isn't it? So then now, thinking is the process of analyzing. The next step, the wisdom of thinking. Here we check to discover whether the aggregates are impermanent or not. The wisdom resulting from that analysis, an understanding that knows that they are definitely impermanent, is the wisdom of thinking. So now meditation is the third one. And of course, the classic meaning of this is that you place the mind single-pointedly upon the fact that has been decisively ascertained through the process of thinking. And the wisdom of meditation is the wisdom occurring with that concentration. That's the classic approach. So, of course, so as you hear the words, single-pointed. So the getting of single-pointed concentration is a separate process. That's where you learn to watch your breath. You do Mahamudra. You're learning to focus on the mind. The goal of the single-pointed, of the concentration meditation, of the calm abiding, is to train your mind. It's a training to get the mind to become single-pointed. Why? So you can use it to get insight into the various points of Buddha's path. That's what you're trying to get insight into. So then you would listen to the teachings about impermanence, listen to the teachings about karma, listen to the teachings about vows, listen to the teachings about bodhicitta, listen to all of the Buddha's teachings. And then you would, as you're doing it, you're thinking it through, but also in your meditation technique, that's where also you would employ the analysis. That's why we hear the Tibetans talk about analytical meditation, which confuses us because we have these wrong views about meditation. But analysis is just a fancy word, isn't it, for to think intelligently about something. To think about something, but obviously intelligently, not just think about vaguely with your mind wandering all over the place, You use your logic. You use logic to think it through. That's what so classically what you would do as you're listening to the class, like right now, we'd be thinking it through. But, let's say we started to talk about emptiness or karma. Then when you go home and do your meditation, your homework, if you like, you would first sit and do some concentration and get whatever degree of concentration that you've accomplished already, which would be very limited for most of us, unless we're great meditators. Then we would get that focused mind, and now we would go to the second mode. And then we would take the topic we just heard in our class, either because you've memorized it, or you take your course notes and you literally read them through. And this is exactly what we do when we do homework. It's nothing unique. You've been to cooking class and you've taken, written down the recipes, you've written down the things that the teacher told you. You would then think it through, and then the penny would drop. But here we're trying to get the penny to drop at a subtler level. That's why the benefit of concentration meditation is so marvelous. So, of course, 99% of us won't accomplish much concentration unless we seriously focus on it, seriously make a goal, have a goal of developing single-pointed concentration. And the only reason to have it is so that you use it to get insight by utilizing first analysis, which will then trigger an insight. So I think, like we talked last week, a classic use of these two modes of meditation in one session will be: you come home from your class, you sit down and you do the focusing. You get your mind to the level of concentration that you've accomplished. That's your first mode. Then you've got your level of concentration that you've accomplished. Now you keep that focus, and now you go to the second mode and you start engaging in the analysis of the impermanence, of the emptiness, of the bodhicitta, of the compassion, whatever the topic is you want to get insight into. So a typical way in a session would be, let's say you've got good concentration, you'd think through the emptiness thing, or the dependent arising, or the bodhicitta, whatever the topic is, you think it through logically, carefully, and then at some point you'll go, oh, I get it. That's an insight. So you would immediately stop the analysis. You would revert to your focusing mode, but you would focus on the insight. On the inside, you'd grab it. So of course, logically, the deeper your concentration is, let's say you've achieved the second or the third stages, which is pretty incredible, then the longer the deeper, the subtler your concentration, then naturally the better your analysis, the more sharp your analysis, and the more profound the insight. So then you would immediately stop the analysis and you would hold the insight on, you'd hold the focus on that insight. So of course, the great meditators, they go into their analysis with their subtle mind, and almost immediately they trigger the insight of emptiness, and then they stay focused single-pointedly on that insight, and that gets better and better and better, day after week after month after year, until eventually you've got the subtlest level, at the subtlest level of concentration, and you finally, one day in one of your lifetimes, you will get the first non-conceptual direct insight into the truth of emptiness. That's your first non-conceptual insight into emptiness. And from that second, you will not fall back after that. You've cut the root of samsara. You have lots more work to do, but that's the crucial turning point, Now, and you can also say any of the insights into any of these, but then you have to perfect that insight. You perfect it by meditating and getting better and better and better until eventually, you've got insight into all of them. This is the classic approach to using the two methods of meditation. Now, of course, we can see from this little book, from the class, from the teachings, that there are lots of little techniques that we can employ in our daily life. Like you can do the 9-round breathing, you can watch your mind, you can do all the tantric meditations, because they're all analysis as well. So, you can do your analysis about impermanence, or you can take your little visualization of Tara to the simplest level that you know it, and you visualize Tara. That's an analytical meditation. It's exactly the same methodology. One, you do your concentration, then two, you go to your second mode, and here it's now visualization. It's the same type of meditation called an analysis, because you're utilizing discursive thinking, but including kind of visualization, You're not using logic to think through the meaning of something, but visualizing Tara, visualizing Genrazik, imagining the light coming, feeling the blessings. That's the second mode of meditation. And again, the success of those meditations, the depth of the feeling you will get from those meditations is dependent upon your concentration. So you can, and there's lots of little techniques you can use, like one day you feel a bit depressed, you can do some Genrazik. Maybe you do your Tara meditation. They can lift you, But it's crucial to understand these two modes of meditation, to know what you're doing when you do it and why you're doing it. In the end, it's all to lead you to becoming a Buddha, That's the broadest point I'm trying to make. So as Geshe Tektok says, meditation is placing the mind. That's the meaning of the word meditation. Placing the mind in this context. Actually, the word meditate, the verb, the Tibetan word, we've discussed this, is literally the verb to familiarize, to become familiar with. Your mind becoming familiar. Familiarizing is the meaning here of meditation, meaning familiarizing, it's a really good word, familiarizing yourself with it more and more and more until eventually it's completely second nature, you know. That's the meaning of meditation. So that's why technically concentration is a technique that you do to get ready to do real meditation. Technically, it's the analysis that is the meditation, familiarizing your mind with emptiness, with impermanence, with karma, with bodhicitta, with virtue and wisdom. That's meditation. Concentration is the first step. Is to get you ready to be able to do it. Technically, that's not really meditation, to be quite strict. Think about it. So in a slightly wider context, scripture states that first we need to abide in the ethical discipline of avoiding the 10 destructive actions. So that's Geshe-la's way of saying, control your body and speech, harness your crazy energy, control the servants of your mind. That's what he's saying. On that basis, we listen to Dharma teachings and generate the wisdom of hearing. Then we think, check, and analyze to generate the wisdom of thinking. Finally, we meditate by placing the mind single-pointedly. In other words, this is why the very first entry-level junior school grade 1 level of the path in the Lam Rim is to abide by the laws of karma. That's control your body and speech. It's to control your body and speech. This is really kind of something very mean. In our culture, we don't think like this, you know. We just don't think this way, as if we don't think of it as a specific practice. But the more we understand this and the more we understand why karma comes first, then when you get to the middle scope, now you start the actual job of working on your mind. This is where you uniquely become a Buddhist, you know. But it's clear, if you've got uncontrolled body and speech, undisciplined behavior, you can't possibly work on your mind. It's so obvious, you know. But it takes us a while to hear this. It just sounds boring in the beginning, you know. It's absolutely vital. That's why ethical discipline, living in vows, and then purifying your mind every day with your body and speech, you purifying your actions of body and speech is a fundamentally necessary practice. Without it, you cannot get far in your mind. Don't even bother trying, you know. You've got to prepare, you prime your body and you prime your mind by controlling your body and speech, getting discipline, ethical discipline, as he says, you know. So let us look at how one person can practice hearing, thinking, and meditating along an entire path. Okay, so now, on the basis of avoiding the 10 non-virtuous actions, you first listen to the subject that is common to all vehicles. They include the precious human birth, death, refuge, karma, all these points in the Lam Rim. Having listened well to all these subjects, this person thinks and meditates on them. And then should they wish for a more vast practice, we can take the Bodhisattva ordination, keep the Bodhisattva precepts, and again, listen, think about, and meditate upon the subjects connected to the Bodhisattva path, such as loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, and the 6 far and all the 6 perfections. Then, if you have an interest in the profound one, you can now go to tantric ordination. So it's all the Lam Rim, step by step by step. So you utilize these methods of first concentration and then thinking, analyzing, and meditating in order to realize the entire path to enlightenment. This is the classic presentation of how you do it. I hope we're communicating. So analytical meditation, let's see what Geshe-la says. How do we know that we have gained the intended result from a given meditation? So how much time should we spend on each meditation? How do we prevent the experiences we gain from deteriorating? Now, that's a really powerful point, you know. You can even, up to a certain stage of development, you can even lose the realization of bodhicitta. You know, for example, I've heard that the Buddha has said we've achieved single-pointed concentration in many lifetimes. But we haven't used it to realize emptiness. Because until we realize emptiness, we can lose everything. When you realize emptiness, you can't go back after that. That's a crucial turning point, you know. So then how do we prevent the experiences we gain from deteriorating? We'll then cover so we shall cover then the general points regarding this now, and points related to specific meditation topics will be dealt with. This is all Geshe-la speaking on a particular text, okay? So although we've heard many teachings and may be enthusiastic to teach them to others, our mind is not subdued and our qualities are not developed. What is the difficulty? We have not gained experience from meditation and have not integrated our knowledge into our experiences. In other words, we know a lot, but have not meditated on it properly. Merely knowing the teachings does not constitute analytical meditation. This does not produce the internal transformation that analytical meditation does. Analytical meditation is real meditation, important meditation. It is indispensable for generating realizations. See, this is the major difference in the Tibetan Buddhist, even particularly in the Gelugpas. This concept does not exist in the modern world's understanding of meditation. So until we get this, we're not getting the point about meditation, you know, and most of us don't really apply it. Most of us listen to the teachings for 20, 30 years and still can't repeat them because we haven't meditated on them. They haven't become our experience. And they will only, and again, you know this, from math, music, cooking, any body of knowledge. You can just, you know, listen 1,000 times to certain cooking things or math or something. But if you haven't seriously thought it through, seriously experienced the truth of it, it'll just be words for you. We know this. So if we want to say we're Buddhists, we need to, that's why His Holiness always tells us to study. It means listen to the teachings, think about the meaning and internalize it, because it's then that the radical changes occur, you know. It just kind of makes sense if we think about it. So occasionally, strong determination to be free from cyclic existence or strong faith in the three jewels may arise without having meditated a lot. This is not analytical meditation. From time to time, we might think, oh, yes, samsara is awful. I'm off to a cave in the mountains to meditate. Or we may suddenly have a strong feeling of love for all sentient beings, and then it vanishes, and we feel as we did before. This is the thing that most of us are like, I think, you know. Or we may suddenly, so sometimes we may have a sense of the emptiness of inherent existence and think, now I've realized emptiness. Wow, this is fantastic. But then the experience fades away and we think, oh no, I've lost it again. That also is not an experience arising from analytical meditation. That also, so then what are these experiences then? They are a form of belief or correct assumption. They are positive, but they're unstable. If they were inferential, valid cognition, okay, there's different stages that they talk about that we go through. And again, this is the same as any body of knowledge. You start off with what they call wrong view. Let's say you hear about acupuncture for the first time and you can't believe this nonsense. What are you talking about? Needles sticking in your body. And your first instinct is don't be ridiculous. It's a load of rubbish. But then you decide you're going to listen to it and think about it. So you gradually start to think about it. And then your mind gradually moves towards what they call doubt. But it's doubt tending towards still the wrong view. Maybe it's true. No, it can't be possible. But you keep listening. You keep thinking about it. You keep your mind open. You start to listen and you talk to people and you investigate. And then your mind slowly moves towards doubt, now tending towards the correct view, because you're learning more. Your mind is open. Eventually, with more study, more analysis, more checking, or more thinking about it even, you're going to get what they call correct belief. So this is what Geshe-la is saying here at this point. Then from more and more work, more and more serious study, more and more genuine thinking it through, really passing your exams, testing it all, you have what they call inferential certainty. This comes from masses of clear analysis, clear thinking, clear analytical meditation. So with acupuncture and any body of knowledge, from clear thinking and really thinking it through and really testing it, you have inferential certainty. This is huge. It's not a direct experience yet. So what these are then, they are a form of belief or correct assumption. And that's because we've heard it before. You see, we come into this life, many of us go, oh yeah, I really like Buddhism. It just sounds very nice. It's because we've heard it before. We have practiced it before, and then we recognize it, you know. But this is often, I think, a problem. I think the biggest problem among Buddhists, ask people, let's say Buddhists, we confuse liking Buddhism for knowing it. This is the biggest mistake we make, you know. That's just believing in it. Basically, liking it is believing in it without any analysis, any confidence, any ability to answer questions when people ask you because you don't know what to say, you know. Oh, I kind of know it, but I can't say it. That's meaningless. And there's nothing wrong with belief, but eventually it'll go if we don't keep studying it and keep internalizing it. Of course, it's up to us to choose to do that. You're allowed to like something, but if you want to know it, you've got to listen, analysis, and experience the truth of it. So these are positive, this faith, but it's unstable. If they were inferential, valid cognition, inferential certainty that comes from clear thinking, arising from thinking, they would not deteriorate quickly. That's even just from thinking it through, understanding it. And able, that means to open your mouth and explain it, you know? And I can see that for me, the advantage of how kind Lama Zopa was to tell me to teach. I mean, I haven't studied that much, believe me, I don't have that much knowledge. But this process for me over the years of having to speak this stuff is the process of thinking, isn't it? It's the process of thinking it. So, you know, if I'm able to say the meaning, it's every time I say it, I get it a bit more clear. Every time I say it, I get it a bit clearer, a bit clearer, a bit clearer. So I'm so grateful, you know, that you people listen to me. I'm the one who's getting the benefit here by thinking this stuff through. Got to meditate on it yet, but, you know, thinking's pretty good. Don't underestimate thinking. Don't underestimate inferential certainty. That's a point I always like to make. You think about this. Any body of knowledge, if this is the point now, if it is valid, if it's a valid body of knowledge, that means coherent. We think of religion as hippy trippy, cross your fingers and hope for your best. We don't think of it as a coherent presentation of anything. We just think you believe in it. That's our big view, isn't it, of religion? It's just so superstitious, you know. But if any body of knowledge, whether it be acupuncture, cake making, or Buddhism, is a valid body of knowledge, you listen to this. First, it must be coherent intellectually. That's why in this process, you go from wrong view towards doubt, wrong view, you know, and slowly moving towards the right view, correct belief, and inferential certainty. Then on the basis of that, you then get direct experience. So inferential certainty is huge. Do not underestimate it. That comes from thinking logically through the teachings, which means if you've thought it through logically, it can come out of your mouth. I remember one time, one person, we were discussing, you know, and she loves Buddhism. She's got a lot of faith. And I could hear the way she was talking. She had the wrong understanding of what attachment was, you know. So I said, tell me what attachment is. And she said a bit of this and she said a bit of that. Then she said, oh, I sort of know what it is, but I can't say it. And I said, what's 1 + 1? She said 2. I said, you don't say, oh, I know the answer, but I can't say it. And if you can't say it, you don't know. That's the mistake of confusing liking Buddhism with knowing it. If you know it, you can say it, because words are the expression of thoughts. Are we communicating, people? This is really powerful. This is why you know yourself. What study means, it means you internalize it intellectually. Now, leaving it just at intellectual, that's one of the dangers of us clever smarty pants in modern culture. We confuse knowing it intellectually with knowing it experientially. That can be a massive danger, you know. So he says, having these moments of you know it, then it's gone again. When they go, don't be unhappy. They arose due to the blessing of the spiritual teacher. The 3 jewels are from good imprints from your past lives. We should not try to make them, but we should try to make them firm. In other words, don't be satisfied. Oh, yeah, wow, I had such love for sentient beings 1 minute. I had all these tears. Oh, yeah, I understand karma. Don't just leave it there. I mean, the only reason we're sitting here right now is because we've heard it before. Why we even bother coming to classes is because we have got a familiarity with it. How marvelous. We wouldn't be able to study it if we didn't have that familiarity. But this is the point. If we don't continue to enrich our feeling for it with study and familiarization, next life, it'll be gone. We'll lose it. It'll disappear completely. This is why it's so crucial to study and think and analyze and internalize, and then make many prayers and aspirations, because we won't get many meditation experiences, most of us, because we don't have single point of concentration, you know. It's okay. But we make strong aspirations to stay close to the Buddhas, close to the Dharma, close to our teachers. So when we do die, we can be born to a nice family where we can get contact with the teachings and we can keep on moving on our spiritual path. That's the wish, you know. Not have to wait till we're 95 to find it again. So to do this, to make them firm, we need to inspect the conditions which brought them about and to try to reconstruct and maintain those conditions. We should keep going and not allow them to degenerate. The way to make these sudden flashes of understanding stable is by familiarizing ourselves with them through analytical meditation. It comes from having thought about something at length so that we understand it deeply. I mean, it's just in the world, we don't use a concept, analytical meditation, but don't misunderstand it. It just means intelligent thinking, like you learn, when you learn anything. An experience that arises from analytical meditation is valid and stable. An experience, so it comes from having thought about something at length so that we understand it deeply. Analytical meditation does not mean repeating the words of the teachings to ourselves or going over the points of the teachings in a dry academic way. It means thinking deeply about the Dharma and applying it to our own lives. It involves checking the teaching to see if it is logically consistent, if it is describing our experience, and if it is more realistic and beneficial than our usual way of thinking. And eventually, when this happens, we then apply it in our daily lives. We don't just wait for our class to think about karma. You're applying it every day. You know, that's when it becomes richer and more integrated for us and more real for us. Because if it just stays in our head, when it comes to experiences, we'll forget all about it. It just goes out the window, you know. So we have heard of many teachings and have a lot to explain to others, but we don't familiarize ourselves with them, and we experience them, we might become immune or thick-skinned towards the Dharma. That's just when you we just remain intellectual, you know. This means that when hearing the teachings, we sit there thinking, oh yeah, I know that. I've heard all that before. Why doesn't my teacher say something new and it's interesting? Or we comment to ourselves, this teacher could improve his way of speaking. His delivery is rather boring. I mean, we do that for sure. And that always moves me, because when you go to a typical teaching with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, let's say, and he's teaching the Lamrim, in the front row, you'll have the 80-year-old abbots who've been hearing it for 75 years. And in the back row, you have the 5-year-olds who are hearing it for the first time. And His Holiness is saying the same words, but that's what's fascinating. The same words, but according to our own capacity, we hear it. We hear it according to our own way of internalizing it. And then whenever you hear it, you would never get bored. Never. You would never get bored, you know. That's a test. That's a sign that you're really trying to experience. It's a sign that you're thinking about it seriously. As soon as you think, oh, I've heard this before, oh, I want something more advanced, oh no, I don't want the Lamrim anymore. I want more of emptiness. It's more exciting. Then that's just arrogance, you know. We're just being arrogant, just being intellectual. It becomes dry, intellectual nonsense. Then eventually you give up, you get bored. In Tibetan monasteries, when the pupils become clever, the teacher says, be careful, you're becoming immune to the Dharma. That's what they say, isn't that nice? So those who do not know much have no danger of becoming immune. So there's no need to warn them. It is those who, knowing a little, become proud of their knowledge and proud of their ability to explain it to others, and they're the ones in the greatest danger. they should be especially careful. That's a very important point, actually. We've got to be so humble, And that means we've got to know what we do know and know what we don't know. It's very important. So anyway, people, there's a few thoughts there. Any questions? Are there any questions? Nothing. Nothing? No questions? Okay, so this is the classic way of using the two modes of meditation in the internalizing of all the Dharma, the points of the Dharma, in order to get realizations. But again, like I'm saying, in our daily life, we can use these little techniques as a kind of like an incentive to us. Like you're feeling a bit depressed, you do Tara meditation, gets a few blessings. You need a bit of compassion, you do Chen raising. You need to calm your mind down, you do a bit of watching your breath. You want to kind of steady your mind, you do the 9-round breathing. So there's also that way we can utilize meditation in our daily life to help us. But this is the fundamental of it. This way, the classic way of the two modes. If we're a serious, if we're a serious Buddhist, we're doing our best to be serious. And this is why listening to the teaching, sometimes people, will talk about, oh, I'm not intellectual. I don't want to listen to the teachings. I just want to meditate, people say. It shows a complete misconception of the meaning, People often talk that way. Are there any questions? Please. No questions. Okay.
I have a question.
Good, sweetheart. Talk to me.
So my first experience with emptiness came before I knew anything about Buddhism.
Who's talking?
It's Lorraine.
Oh, Lorraine, hello, darling. Talk to me, yes.
So it was actually a very strange situation that, I don't know, it's hard for me to talk about because it sounds so strange. But I keep a dream journal. And I wrote a dream down in probably 2007. About, I want to say 10, 15 years later, I was at a very, very dangerous point in my life. And for some reason, I had that dream journal and I read the dream and I thought about, how silly that dream was and fell asleep. And when I woke up, the meaning of the dream, I don't know if it was the real meaning of the dream, but I was just completely in emptiness.
So tell me what you think emptiness means here, Lorraine, because it's a very broad word and I don't know whether we've discussed it. I don't know whether we've had these conversations. So tell me what you're thinking about emptiness here.
Okay, so the feeling that I had was that there was really nothing that existed. It was, when you hear the words emptiness is form is emptiness, that's exactly what it was. And it's very, very difficult to explain, but all of a sudden there was only that moment and nothing else, nothing.
Okay. So it's been a helpful learning for you, is it?
It saved my life. It didn't immediately get me out of that situation, but it brought me to the realization and brought a lot of things about that eventually. And I don't even remember how I finally found Buddhism and how that related to it.
Well, this is one of the points that that Geshe just mentioned briefly here. Because we've done this before, because we've heard it before, is even why we even hear the word again, Buddhism. I mean, lots of people hear the word Buddhism, but it goes in one ear and out the other. So if we do have any of these experiences, and it's not an uncommon thing, people have all kinds of incredible experiences and never heard the teachings before, So it's a really good sign for us that we have heard them before. And what it tells us is we now need to start listening and thinking and meditating again to get it more, to get it to come deep again. Do you understand?
Yes.
It's a little bit like, some people have very strong connection with music, let's say, and you're sitting around, you sit down and you're fiddling around on the piano and suddenly you play some incredible, beautiful music. Do you understand? And it's just completely intuitive. And then I'll say to you, oh, girl, great, play that again. And you say, oh, no, I can't do that. It just kind of came. That's a common thing that we do experience. But of course, the real point, if it's a genuine experience, we'll be able to replicate it every time, won't we? You see the point?
Yes, I've had trouble replicating it.
Well,
And
that's right. But what I'm getting at, what it tells you, you've now got to start learning the theory again and playing the piano from scratch, so that every time you can do it. That's the learning from it, Lorraine. Do you see my point?
yes, I'm just trying to figure out how to get to that. I don't want to get to rock bottom again in order to for that
What do you mean
experience.
by rock bottom? What do you mean by that, darling?
I was okay.
I mean, I'm not discussing what do you mean by going to rock bottom. I'm just talking about if you've got an experience of, I'm using music purposely as an example. If you have a strong feeling for it and you sit at the piano and you have an extraordinary experience, if you can't replicate it, that means you have to learn it again, doesn't it? Would you not say that's logical?
That is logical, yes.
And because the imprint is there, you can learn it quickly. So this just means if you think the Buddhist path is yours, honey, you've got to go back to basics and start at the beginning and just keep moving. And then all these things will fall into place. That's what it's telling me. That's up to you to whether it's telling you that.
I think you might be right. I'm just having trouble implementing things because my mind is still the monkey mind.
Well, but that's why you've got to practice, because your mind is monkey mind. Join the universe, babe.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand?
Yes, thank you.
Good, Lorraine. Thank you so much, darling. Who else? Something else. Yes, Barbara.
Yes. I guess I'm looking for your insight or encouragement from you, because when I do the meditation and I'm trying to gain insight, I think the notes talked about the disturbing attitude that I feel like I'm very attached to things. So, and I recognize that I can't have an insight unless I'm willing to let go of something that I already have, like if it's a resentment or an anger. And so I feel like this is like a roadblock to insight, because
Insight into what, Barbara?
well, just into like, trying to develop more compassion and forgiveness and basic things like that, that I actually have to let go of something.
So let's be precise. So what you're saying is you seem to experience some blocks specifically in relation to having more empathy and compassion and forgiveness. That's the particular point of the teachings you're discussing here. Not emptiness, not impermanence, not karma, but it's particularly, so what you're implying is that in your mind there's kind of attachment to a certain view and you've got some kind of anger or resentment. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So then taking this kind of classic presentation that I've just read out, what's your approach to it? What's your method? What do you think you should do?
Well, I guess the three things, the listening, because I hear that I'm struggling inside with it, and then thinking, and then meditating. I guess I have to just keep going through, cycling through that.
Yeah, no, but what's interesting, so then have you listened to many teachings about the Bodhisattva path itself, the specific approach to the Bodhisattva path, all the different teachings on equanimity, love, compassion? They're very, very specific techniques where you use very specific logic to argue with attachment and anger and the rest. You can't just cross your fingers and hope it goes,
Okay, so that's what I need to do then, is to seek out the information. Okay, all right.
So that's exactly
you.
right. So have you done many of these? No, keep talking, sweetheart.
Okay.
So have you done many of these to discovering Buddhism modules, or have you done many of the meditations on compassion, these kinds of things?
No, not with this center. I've done some readings on, the more Western concept of mindfulness and secular Buddhism. That is, social activism and things like that. So, but the actual material, like the doctrines, and this is new to me.
Okay, so I think just keep moving, Barbara. I mean, you're liking what's going on so far, are you? It's making sense to you?
Yes.
So keep moving, darling. And I mean, whatever the specific thing. But let's just, if you don't, I don't want to be too personal, but just speak specifically the particular obstacle. So you're saying attachment to a view, you're attached to certain people, you're attached to not giving. I mean, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, and not across the board. I mean, I feel like I'm a compassionate person.
Yes.
But it's easy to be compassionate to somebody you like. If it's somebody who does you wrong,
exactly.
It's hard to be compassionate when you feel wrong.
That's right. So using this typical approach, then, I mean, there's so many approaches in order to counteract the obstacles in our mind. I mean, one of the really powerful ones for a Buddhist, of course, is the understanding of karma. I mean, that's got to come before compassion. If you have the view of karma, I don't know if you've heard many teachings on karma, no?
Not too many, just
no. I mean, so this is one example of one of the teachings. So the view in Buddhism of karma is that we've all had countless past lifetimes. Our mind goes back and back, and we've met all these different people countless times. And the logic is, if someone's kind to you, that's because you've been kind to them, speaking simply. So clearly, if someone's been mean to you, then one of the first contemplations we need to do is, well, if it is true that there is karma, and if it is true we've got this karmic connection, and if it is true they've been mean to me, then it follows logically I must have been mean to them. I don't remember when. So then, I better start trying to take responsibility. And then and so there's different, so many, if you study the Buddhist teachings, if one wants to, and this is a very specific approach. This is not the typical approach in many of the Buddhist traditions, but this is certainly in our tradition, where you read the teachings, you think about this meaning and you apply it to yourself. Then, okay, then, so I've got some work to do. So then, and in that way, when you realize that we're part of the cause of both our happiness and our suffering, we can take more responsibility, and that can loosen the grip of this resentment and hurt. Because resentment and hurt is sort of saying, how dare they do that to me? I don't deserve it. Do you understand, isn't it? It's very painful. And this is, life. So if you have the view of karma, which is a powerful one in Buddhism, and it really does take time for us in our culture to internalize it, then you apply it by trying to buy into it as this is the hypothesis I'm using. And that can really help shift things for us. And then eventually compassion can come later. In a sense, compassion is more advanced, So we've got to first look into our own suffering and our own misery and our own hurt and how that hurts us. And there's all these different approaches to it. So it's just keep moving, I'd say, Barbara. Read some things, go to different classes and start to try to think through this presentation of life and why things happen. Because, the Buddha's view is quite specific, and see how we can put our money where our mouth is,
Okay.
You understand?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Barbara. Thank you, sweetheart. Yes, people. Anything else? Hello there. Yes, Kathleen, darling, talk to me.
Hi, Venerable. Thank you for your teachings.
Okay.
I have a question about applying this analytical meditation to life situations. I've gone through the readings and I found them very helpful. I have this life situation where I'm having difficulty making some major decisions.
Okay, right.
And are there, is it something that that you can kind of, if I think of doing it in a non-Buddhist way, having, a checklist, a pro and a con column.
Sure.
But is there
what approach to take, you mean?
Correct.
Absolutely. I can answer that, yes. So if we look at if we look at this entire path, there's a way, and I often quote this as an example and an analogy. There's these two essential components of the path. One is they talk about getting wisdom, and one is getting compassion. So the essence of this first stages that we're discussing here, the wisdom wing, there's a bird needs two wings, they say, wisdom and compassion. So the wisdom wing, it's just a way of summarizing, is all the nuts and bolts of understanding karma, understanding our mind, understanding impermanence, understanding suffering, what the causes are, and all that's very much doing the inner work ourselves, applying all these teachings to our own life. And from this, as we progress and buy into the karmic view more, we take more responsibility. Then we start to look into our mind. We start seeing how attachment and anger hurt us, how they cause us pain. We try to give them up. We try to develop more optimism, more self-confidence. That's all the wisdom wing. And literally, wisdom is what comes from it, because when we're caught up in misery and confusion and attachment and anger, we can't see past our own noses. Do you understand what I'm saying? We make all these dumb decisions. So as we get clearer from working on ourselves, now we look and go, wow, we're all in the same boat, and we start working on the compassion wing. That's necessarily more advanced. So, okay, so taking this analogy, we could say that the basis for any decision in your life is either the first wing is it most useful what this decision I want to make, will making this decision help me continue to work on my mind, continue to get some clarity, to continue move forward in myself and develop my marvelous potential? Are you hearing me? That's a powerful basis. Now, the other one, which is even more expansive, will this decision help me increase my compassion as well? The basis for making your decision would be either one of these or both. And that would be the best decision on the planet. And that often means you make the tough choices. The usual decisions we make, Kathleen, will I get what I want? It'll be attachment. It'll be fear. It'll be worrying what people think. It will be not very courageous. And we end up going up garden paths, So it's difficult to make the tough choices. But if you want to keep moving on this internal path, you becoming clearer and wiser and less neurotic and more compassionate, then you make a choice that will enable you to do that. And that's often the tough choices. That's the basis for your decision. You get my point?
I do. Thank you. That's very helpful.
So think like that, and then don't force, but always wish to make the right decision. Dalai Lama always says, always aspire to do what's most beneficial. And if we can, long-term, better than short-term. So now, if you're on this path, it means Buddhahood, 47 lives later, whatever. So that means if you've got to think about this, if you've got like a map and your goal is, wherever it is. So here I was just describing goal being our Buddhahood, let's say the long term. Then it's obvious if you're on a journey, whatever turnoff you take has to lead you to where you're going. If it ends up going you in the wrong direction, you're going to lose the plot, aren't you? So having this aspiration, may I do what's most beneficial, both for yourself and others, that'll help you be courageous. And it doesn't mean, what is the right decision? I don't know. But I think the way karma works, if you have this thought every day, I don't know what the decision is, but may I do what's most beneficial, that thought programs you and helps encourage the karmic seed to be triggered that will cause you to make the right choice. So trust that process, I want to do what's most beneficial. I want to do the best. Not sure what it is. I always think it's like the analogy is you're walking on a road, and it's your life, Kathleen. The road is your life. Whatever obstacles you meet or the problems you get, the good things you see, it's your life. So what can you do? You can't stand still. You can't go back. You can't just take any old cute turn off because it looks easy. You've always got to, I want to recognize the turn off when it comes. I want to do what's most beneficial. Meanwhile, you keep living your life. You go to bed, you get up in the morning, you do your practice, you deal with the husband, the wife, the kids, the job, whatever it is you've got now with this thought, I'm going to keep moving, and slowly it'll become clear to me what the right thing to do is. And then you will make the right decision, and even if it's the tough choice. You understand?
I do. Thank you.
Okay, good, darling. It's the best way to live your life. And then you don't get lost. We don't take off dumb turn-offs because they look cute, and then we lose the plot. You understand?
You do. Thank you.
Be brave, Kathleen. Good going. What else, people? Who else? Nobody. Well, let's do a little meditation then. We can just do a few little techniques. We'll try a couple, like a little kind of, I don't know, what do we do? Maybe we do, see, there's a very simple way I like to do these simple ones from Tantra. We visualize the Buddhas, So why don't we do Tara? Because Tara is kind of like, she's kind of like, there are three essential qualities that enlightened beings have. There's the compassion, the wish to benefit others. There's the wisdom to know how, and then there's the ability to do so. And these are the three essential qualities. So Chenrezig is the Buddha of compassion. Manjushri, Manju, gentle voice. He's holding a sword that cuts through ignorance. And then there's Tara, who's often a representation of the ability of power, success, confidence, optimism, self-confidence. We all need that badly. So why don't we just visualize that one? We'll do a little meditation on Tara to give us courage and optimism to act, to cut through the obstacles, to make things happen, to be courageous. So, I mean, all these are from the Vajrayana, from the more advanced practices. And maybe you're familiar, maybe you're not. We'll just do our best, okay? These are the bodhisattva style of the Buddha. It's different, not the image behind me, which is the typical picture of the Buddha. It's from so you visualize this kind of, she's female, all these different Buddhas, they're male, they're female, they're peaceful, they're all these different qualities. They're basically representing different psychological qualities that we want to accomplish. So Tara, you know, yeah, she's green, light. She's sitting with her left leg drawn in like in meditation, but her right leg, and she's sitting on a multicolored lotus, and her right leg is resting on another little multicolored lotus in this action pose. She's ready to kind of hop up to benefit sentient beings. Think like that. Action energy is action. And it's often depicted as female, you know, quick, cut through the obstacles, get things done, make things happen with courage. So she's this gorgeous, kind of, just think she's very beautiful, very radiant and beautiful, green light body, sweet red mouth, very beautifully decorated. It's the bodhisattva style. It's quite different from the Buddha style, from the monk style. You know, she's in this kind of rainbow colored kind of lower part of her body clothing, and on the top part she's really just got these, she hasn't got many clothes at all. She's got these gorgeous breasts, and she's very beautiful, and she's got her right hand on her right knee, and her palm is up. And this is like in the gesture or mudra of kind of giving, you know, it's very generous. And she's holding within her thumb and ring finger the stem of a blue lotus flower, and it blooms at her right ear. And her right leg, remember, is sort of resting on a lotus, sort of in a sort of not like crossed, like in a relaxed pose. And her left hand is at her heart, and the fingers pointing up, and she's holding the stem of another blue flower that blooms at her left ear. Just do your best to visualize, imagine. It's like a visual language, this really. One has to learn it, you know, everything means something. And she's totally gorgeous, full of enthusiasm and energy and wisdom and compassion. But the particular aspect of like this is action energy, get things done, make things happen. So if we have a spiritual teacher, you know, a spiritual mentor, we think it's their mind manifesting as Tara for our benefit. It makes it very personal. So now imagine, you know, she sends these very radiant beams of white light, laser light, from her brow that enters our brow and fills us completely with this radiant white light. And you think it, first of all, it removes all the pain and misery of our bodies, all the heaviness, all the sickness, you know, all the troubles with our bodies, totally removes all that. But also what it does is purify all the past negative karma we've created of misusing our bodies in the past to harm sentient beings, totally purifies all these karmic seeds, removing all the obstacles, you know, and also healing our body, all of this, full of this radiant white light. Imagine this. So happily she does this. And we'll just say a few times the mantra, if you know the mantra, otherwise just silently visualize this white light filling you. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Swaha. 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 Imagine full of this white light, totally healing your body, healing all the pain, all the heaviness, and purifying all the nonsense of the past, all the harm we've ever done with our bodies, misusing our bodies to harm sentient beings, totally purifying all that negative karma, removing all the obstacles. And thinking our body now can only be healthy and only benefit sentient beings, not harm, full of this marvelous potential. It's radiant white light. So now imagine, very kindly, very compassionately, she sends radiant laser beams of red light from her throat, entering our throat, filling us completely. And this time purifying all the rubbish of our speech, all the karmic results, say, of harsh speech. For example, in this lifestyle, even if you're speaking nicely, someone might think you're being mean. You're not being. That's that's a result of harsh speech in the past. Let's say people think you're not telling the truth and you are telling the truth. That's from past lying. All the actions we do in the past, they ripen as our present suffering or our happiness, So all the suffering results of negative speech, of lying, of the harsh speech, of bad-mouthing people behind their backs. Let's say our relationships never last. That's because of disharmonious speech, People leaving us, painful things happening, not trusting us, not believing our words, environment not being working properly, karmic results of environment, the karmic results of experiences, and our own tendencies. All of this purified, all the lying, the nonsense, even if we're not even lying, sometimes we often speculate. We don't even know if we're speaking the truth, and we just confuse people, So all the rubbish of our speech, harsh speech, talking bad things about people behind their backs, all these negative opinions about people, saying words that aren't true, just rabbiting on about nothing. All this misuse of our speech that causes us so much suffering, and all the karmic seeds from countless past lives, purifying all of this, full of this blissful red light. And then imagining now full of the power of speech. They call it the power of speech, such that anything we say will benefit people. People will listen to our words. We'll be able to achieve our goals because people trust our speech, believe our speech, and our speech is powerful. This is very important. We live in lies. We need speech, So purifying all the rubbish and filling us with this marvelous potential to only benefit others with our speech, full of this blissful red light. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Swaha. 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 Full of this blissful red light and this marvelous potential. Whatever word we say will be useful, beneficial, appropriate, kind for sentient beings. So now she so compassionately, Lama Tara sends from her heart chakra in the center of her chest, radiant laser beams of blue light, blue like the sky, penetrate our heart and fill us completely. And this time, completely purifying the source of all the problems, our ego grasping that clings to this sense of a separate me, so concrete, and then the attachment to get what that me wants, all that emotional hunger, all that dissatisfaction, all that neediness, all that pain of attachment, completely purifying that. And then all the aversion when attachment doesn't get what it wants, all the upset, the anxiety, the anger, the depression, all of this and all the other painful states of mind that causes so much suffering and causes to do dumb things with our body and speech. Totally purified, absolutely rid of all this. The Buddha has found that this is what's possible, that all this stuff is not at the core of our being, can be removed. Full of this radiant blue light. But also think, now the delusions have gone, the attachment's gone, the ego grasping's gone, the anger's gone. What's left? Well, love, empathy, compassion, courage, intelligence, kindness, self-confidence. These are our true nature. These are who we really are. So imagine full of this marvelous blue light and our own marvelous potential. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Swaha. Om Tare Tutare 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 Ture Swaha. Full of this marvelous blue light and our true nature manifesting. Imagine that. And that, of course, the bonus is also joy, happiness. This sounds so weird to us, but this is the Buddha's point. The more we're caught up in the miseries and the anxieties and the jealousies and the depression and the confusion, is the more miserable we are. And the more we lessen those and grow our virtues, grow our goodness, the more joyful we are. This is just logical. So imagine that, full of joy, full of wisdom, full of clarity, full of empathy, our true nature. Imagine this. Om Tare Tutare Ture Swaha. Om Tare Tutare Ture Swaha. So now imagine Lama Tara, the lotus she's sitting on and the multicolored lotus her right foot is resting on, dissolve up into her body. Imagine that. And then she very happily comes and sits above our crowns, facing the same way as us. Imagine. And now you imagine the energy of Tara's body, speech, and mind. Our Lama's bodies, the energy of our spiritual mentors' body, speech, and mind. Merge with our body, speech, and mind. We become one. Imagine being full of this. And then imagine you just expand to fill the universe. Infinite wisdom, infinite clarity, infinite goodness, infinite kindness, our true nature. Vast, clear, expand to fill the universe. Just a couple of minutes, just rest in that. No thoughts, no thoughts. And then now we just finish. I think we finish a bit early, but it's okay. And we just think for the rest of the day, tomorrow, whenever. We never give up. We think of our marvelous potential. And according to our own capacity and our own wishes, we utilize, these tools we've learned. It's up to us completely. No one's forcing us. It's up to us totally. Want to jump in the deep end? We just want to do a little bit once a month. It's up to us, to use these methods to internalize the teachings, to develop our marvelous potential, to develop the two wings of the bird, so we can be a benefit to others. Okay, everybody. That's it, I think. Venerable Dundrup, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. And I think we're going to see each other on Saturday, yeah? Isn't it? We'll see how we go. We'll do a few little techniques. We'll have a bit of a retreat day. Yeah, everybody. Thank you so much. Each one of you. Thank you.
Thank you.